Welcome to our comprehensive guide on the law of contract, cornerstone of commercial law that impacts everyone, especially those involved in trade, commerce, and industry. The Indian Contract Act of 1872 forms the backbone of contract law in India, providing the rules and definitions that govern agreements and their enforceability. Understanding contract law is essential not just for lawyers, but for anyone entering into agreements, whether in business or daily life. In this video, we'll break down the essentials, types, and special considerations of contracts, including the rise of e-contracts in the digital age. Contract is more than just an agreement, it's an agreement enforceable by law. For an agreement to become a contract, it must be made with the free consent of competent parties for a lawful object and with lawful consideration. Not every agreement is a contract. For example, agreeing to see a movie together isn't enforceable by law, but selling a radio set is. The Indian Contract Act clearly distinguishes between mere agreements and legally binding contracts, ensuring that only certain promises are protected and enforceable. According to Section 2(e) of the Indian Contract Act, an agreement is every promise or set of promises forming the consideration for each other. This means both parties make promises to each other, creating a mutual obligation. For instance, if a promises to deliver his watch to B and B promises to pay a sum of money, they have an agreement. The process starts with an offer by one party and acceptance by the other, transforming the proposal into a promise. For an agreement to be considered a contract, it must meet certain essentials. It must be between two or more competent persons, made with free consent for a lawful object and with lawful consideration. Consent is considered free when it's not caused by mistake, misrepresentation, undue influence, fraud, or coercion. If any of these elements are present, the contract may be voidable at the option of the affected party. Competence means the parties must be of legal age, of sound mind, and not disqualified by law. Contract must have a lawful consideration and object. If the consideration or object is unlawful, such as being forbidden by law, fraudulent, or against public policy, the agreement is void. The Indian Contract Act also expressly declares certain agreements void, such as wagering agreements or those with uncertain meaning. This ensures that only agreements with legitimate purposes are enforceable, protecting the integrity of contractual relationships. Void agreements are those not enforceable by law. For example, an agreement made by a minor is void. Sections 24 to 30 of the Indian Contract Act specify which agreements are void, including those without consideration in restraint of marriage or in restraint of trade. Such agreements have no legal effect and cannot be enforced by any party. Voidable contract is enforceable by law at the option of one or more parties but not at the option of the other. This typically occurs when consent was obtained through coercion, undue influence, fraud, or misrepresentation. The affected party can choose to either enforce or void the contract. For example, if someone is forced into a contract, they can later decide to void it. It's important to distinguish between void and voidable contracts. A void agreement cannot be enforced by anyone, while a voidable contract is valid until the party with the option chooses to void it. The defects in a voidable contract can sometimes be cured, but those in a void agreement cannot. Compensation for loss is possible in voidable contracts, but not in void agreements. Unlawful agreements are those where the law forbids the very act contemplated by the agreement, such as committing a crime or tort. Unlike void agreements, unlawful agreements also taint collateral transactions, making them unenforceable. For example, a loan given to enable smuggling is also considered unlawful and cannot be recovered. Proposal or offer is when one person signifies to another their willingness to do or abstain from doing something with the intention of obtaining the other's assent. For example, offering to sell a radio set for a certain price is a proposal. The intention behind the offer is crucial. Without the intention to obtain assent, it's not a valid proposal. A valid proposal must include an expression of willingness to do or abstain from something, and it must be made with the objective of obtaining the other party's assent. The person making the proposal is called the proposer or offerer, while the person to whom it is made is the proposee or offeree. For an offer to be valid, it must be communicated to the other party. The terms of the offer must be made known, and only then can the offer be accepted. Acting in ignorance of an offer does not amount to acceptance. This principle was highlighted in the case of Lalman Shukla v. Gauri Dutt, where the plaintiff was unaware of the offer and thus could not claim the reward. Offers can be express or implied. An express offer is made through clear communication, either spoken or written. An implied offer is communicated by conduct or circumstances. For example, stating a price for a bike is an express offer, while a bid at an auction is an implied offer. The communication of a proposal is complete when it comes to the knowledge of the person to whom it is made. An offer cannot be accepted unless the offeree is aware of it. This ensures that both parties are on the same page before a contract is formed. For an offer to result in a valid contract, there must be an intention to create legal relations. Social agreements, like going for a walk, are generally not enforceable because there's no intention to create legal obligations. In business matters, however, it's presumed that parties intend to create legal relations. Offers can be general or specific. A specific offer is made to a particular person and can only be accepted by them. A general offer is made to the public at large and can be accepted by anyone who fulfills the conditions. Famous cases like Carlo v. Carbolic Smoke Ball co-illustrate how general offers work in practice. It's important to distinguish between an offer and an invitation to offer. An invitation to offer is not a final willingness to contract but an invitation for others to make offers. For example, displaying goods in a shop window is an invitation to offer, not an offer itself. The shopkeeper can choose whether or not to sell the item. Acceptance is when the person to whom the proposal is made signifies their assent. Once an offer is accepted unconditionally, it becomes a promise. Acceptance can be revoked before it's communicated, but once communicated, it binds both parties. Acceptance can be expressed through spoken or written words or implied through conduct. What matters is that there is some external manifestation of acceptance. For example, boarding a bus and paying the fare is implied acceptance of the transport company's offer. A general offer can be accepted by anyone who fulfills its conditions, while a specific offer can only be accepted by the person to whom it is made. This distinction ensures clarity in contractual obligations and helps prevent disputes over who is entitled to accept an offer. A contract is created only after an offer is accepted. Before acceptance, neither party is bound and both are free to withdraw. Once accepted, both parties are legally bound by their promises provided all other conditions of a valid contract are met. For acceptance to be valid, it must be communicated by the offeree to the offerer, be absolute and unqualified, made in a usual or prescribed manner, and while the offer is still subsisting. Any deviation from these essentials can invalidate the acceptance. Acceptance must be communicated to the offerer either expressly or impliedly. Communication to a stranger does not count as acceptance. The offerer cannot impose the burden of refusal on the offeree. This principle was established in cases like Powell v. Lee. Acceptance must be absolute and unqualified and expressed in a usual or reasonable manner unless a specific mode is prescribed. If a particular manner is required, acceptance must follow that manner. Otherwise, it can be communicated through common methods like post, telegram, or email. The communication of acceptance is complete as against the proposer when it is put in a course of transmission to them, and as against the acceptor when it comes to the knowledge of the proposer. This ensures both parties are aware of the acceptance and the resulting obligations. Acceptance must be unconditional and absolute. Conditional acceptance amounts to a counteroffer which nullifies the original offer. For example, if someone offers to sell a cycle for a set price and the other party tries to negotiate, it's not acceptance but a counteroffer. If the proposal prescribes a specific manner of acceptance, it must be followed. Otherwise, acceptance can be made in the usual or reasonable manner for that type of transaction. This ensures that both parties understand and agree on how acceptance is communicated. Acceptance must be made while the offer is still alive. If the offer is withdrawn, lapsed, or rejected, it cannot be accepted. Offers can end by lapse of time, rejection, or counteroffer, so timing is crucial in contract formation. An offer can be revoked any time before acceptance. Once accepted, it becomes a binding contract and cannot be revoked. Revocation can occur by notice, lapse of time, failure to fulfill a condition precedent, or death or insanity of the offer before acceptance. Revocation by notice means the proposer communicates their intention to withdraw the offer before it's accepted. In India, this notice must come from the proposer or their agent. In England, even if the offeree learns of the revocation from another source, the offer is considered revoked. A proposal is revoked if not accepted within the time prescribed or within a reasonable time if none is specified. The offerer can also revoke the offer before the stated time if they notify the offeree. This prevents offers from lingering indefinitely. If an offer is subject to certain conditions, those must be fulfilled before acceptance. Failure to meet a condition precedent revokes the offer. For example, if a deposit is required before acceptance and it's not made, the offer is revoked. An offer is revoked by the death or insanity of the offerer if the offeree learns of it before acceptance. In India, if the offeree is unaware and accepts, the contract is valid. In English law, death of the offerer revokes the offer regardless of the offeree's knowledge. Acceptance can be revoked any time before the communication of acceptance is complete as against the acceptor, but not afterwards. This means the acceptor can use a faster method to revoke acceptance before it reaches the proposer. Consideration is the price of a promise, something given in return for a promise. Section 25 of the Indian Contract Act states that an agreement without consideration is void, with some exceptions. Consideration can be a benefit to one party or a detriment to the other, and is essential for a valid contract. Section 2D defines consideration as something done or promised at the desire of the promiser by the promisee or any other person. Consideration can be past, present, or future but must be real and of some value. It forms the basis for enforcing promises in contract law. Consideration must be given at the desire of the promiser, not voluntarily or at the instance of a third party. For example, if someone saves another's goods from a fire without being asked, they can't demand payment. The law requires a direct link between the promiser's request and the act or promise. In Indian law, consideration can be given by the promisee or any other person. This means a third party can provide consideration as long as the contract is between the main parties. This is different from English law where only the promisee can provide consideration. The doctrine of privity of contract means only parties to a contract can enforce it. A stranger to the contract, even if they benefit from it, cannot sue to enforce it. There are exceptions such as trusts or family arrangements where third parties may have rights. Consideration can be past, present, executed, or future executory. Past consideration is something done before the promise, present is simultaneous, and future is a promise to do something later. All three are recognized under Indian law provided they meet the required conditions. Consideration need not be adequate, but it must be real and of some value. Courts may consider inadequacy when determining if consent was freely given, but a contract isn't void just because the consideration is small. However, consideration must not be illusory or unsubstantial. There are exceptions to the rule that no contract exists without consideration. These include promises made out of natural love and affection, compensation for past voluntary services, promises to pay time-barred debts, agency, and gifts. These exceptions are recognized under the Indian Contract Act. Consideration or object must be lawful. If it's forbidden by law, defeats the purpose of law, is fraudulent, or against public policy, the agreement is void. This ensures that contracts serve legitimate purposes and do not promote illegal or immoral activities. With the rise of technology, e-contracts have become common. These are contracts formed electronically, such as through email or online agreements like ClickWrap, ShrinkWrap, and BrowseWrap contracts. The Indian Contract Act, Information Technology Act, and Indian Evidence Act govern the validity and enforceability of e-contracts. Contracts include ClickWrap agreements where users click I agree, ShrinkWrap agreements where terms are inside product packaging, and BrowseWrap agreements where using a website implies acceptance. Issues in e-contracts include jurisdiction, party competency, signature authentication, and data loss. Indian law recognizes e-contracts if they meet the essentials of a valid contract, but challenges remain as technology evolves.